Welcome to Heal the World Show podcast, brought to you by the Healing Institute. I'm Parmelia Parham, and I am the founder of the Healing Institute. We are an international worldwide hub of holistic practitioners, and we are here for people who are looking for ways to be well and stay well on their health journey. I have been using holistic ways for my own personal wellness for well over 30 years. And so I know that it works. And our practitioners we have on the hub are just absolutely amazing. They're all very holistic, which means that they look at everything that's going on with you, definitely get to the root cause, not just symptoms, and they are here for you. So the reason that I decided I wanted to have the Healing Institute, and by the way, I call it an institute because I'm very passionate about educating. So sometimes people get confused because they think they can come and take courses. Well, we're not quite there yet. We're not doing courses, but the reason I designed it as an institute is, as I said, I love to educate people about how to be well and how to stay well. And the reason that this was so important to me is because we did have a tragedy in our family a number of years ago. My mother passed away at a young age. She was only 61. And it was due to a complication with her kidneys because she'd been on a medication for a very long time. And it happened right before Christmas. I was 5 months pregnant with my son, my first child. And it was not only a tragedy that she died at such a young age, but also my children did not get to meet their grandmother. So they didn't get to have their grandmother in their life. And I just don't want that happening for any other families. So it's very, very personal for me to be able to support people that are looking for holistic ways to be well. And I see the Healing Institute as well as a bridge between our medical model that we've had for over 50 years, the allopathic model, and the holistic model, because we need both. So I see we are positioning the Healing Institute to be that bridge. Now, I've been doing this podcast for about almost 2 years, and this is our 92nd episode. So I'm really, really delighted to have Maureen here with us today. Maureen Gates Faubert, she is from southern Alberta, Canada, and we are going to be talking about stress and the stress on our bodies and how the body, how that is a condition and can play havoc with our hormones. So May is Women's Health Month. And so this month, every Friday on the Heal the World Show podcast, I'm having a guest co-host, and we're talking about women's health. So Maureen, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your podcast and share what I love to share, and that's the body and stress. So thank you.
Yes, you're more than welcome. So let's talk a little bit about, give our audience just a little background about you, and then we're going to talk about the modalities that you work with and how people can work with you.
Wonderful. So you wanted me to introduce myself? Is
Yes.
that the intention? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, misunderstood.
That's okay.
Well, I am an emotional energy healer and medical intuitive. So when I work with clients, I'm able to feel their stuck emotions in my body, their pain, their sensation. And the process for me is guiding them to that root cause of the emotions that have been stuck and stuffed there for a lifetime of their life, and guide them through the releasing of those emotions. So essentially it's going within, finding out who you truly are, releasing that trauma, releasing the experiences that were also traumatic, and a lifetime of just not quite knowing what to do with our emotions. So we stuff them away. So I help them release, and I help them find that joy, that love, and reduce that physical and emotional stress on their bodies and minds and their souls, their spiritual part of their body.
Beautiful. I love that. And we were talking earlier before we started to record that we're not really taught about how our bodies react to stress. We kind of think of stress as almost a mental or, a mental issue or an emotional issue. And I don't know about you, but I was never really put the correlation together that our emotional and mental stress could affect our physical body until I started, of course, studying about that. So that is so very important for us to understand. And so, can you tell us maybe a little bit about a client that you've worked with and what you've worked with them and what the results that they had from working with you?
Oh my goodness, choose a client. I wasn't really prepared for that. Well, every one of my clients come to me because they have been experiencing physical
Mhm,
and they
mhm,
find emotional stress, have gone to their doctor to get that medication, to find a diagnosis, a cure, and they can't figure it out. So they're so desperate they come to me alternatively because they really want to learn about themselves. So it's interesting how I do my practice is I base it in energy. I could hear people's souls when I was a little girl, teenager, young woman. I didn't know that's what I was hearing. I would hear people talk and then I would hear their soul speaking, which is their truth. Their truth
mhm,
is being expressed to me. So I guess I'll just talk about my very, very first client as a trained Heal Your Life coach based on the philosophy of Louise Hay, which is
mhm.
metaphysical
Yeah.
healing. It was basic. I started out, our first three sentences was our sessions were just talking, and then I saw energy connected to her. And it was an emotional energy, and it stopped me in that moment. And, I have a 3 month program. So for the next 2.5 months, we worked with energy. And, I was able to see it physically. And we removed, we connected to who it was connected to, removed all that garbage she had put on herself, all
Mm,
of the
mhm.
energy of those emotions. And she was able to go from that point in her life where she was really struggling emotionally to creating her own coaching practice and being successful and just removing all of that heaviness within her body, from her mind, and from her soul. And, every once in a while, she'll send me a text or an email saying, Maureen, thank you so much. You were my beginning. You were my beginning of healing. Um, I guess another example would be when I do experience that physical sensation in my body and I am going to connect or meet with a client. I had one client for the 24 hours before I had a severe headache from nowhere. I never get headaches. Lots of other things happen because I'm a human experiencing this existence here. I don't usually, if ever, get headaches. And I thought, where is this headache coming from? Unknown reason. I didn't know why. So the next day I connected with this client. The first words I said was, do you experience migraines? And the look on her face, how do you know that? And I said, because your body's speaking to me. I feel the energy of what you're feeling in your head. And a lot of times, what it is, you're stressed, you experience that anxiety, you're in your head, and you continually have that bombardment
Yeah,
of
that vibration.
migraines.
Yeah.
They're diagnosable.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's another thing we're not taught. We're not taught about energy. We're not taught about the vibration that we have. And, you know, I often use the story about, well, have you ever met somebody that you really just didn't want to get to know anymore? Or have the opposite, where you've met somebody and you really want to get to know them well? Well, that's your energy vibration. I'm getting truth bumps now when I'm talking about this.
Yes.
It's your energy vibration connecting to their energy vibration. And that's again, I tell people we have actually throughout the world, we have what's called a vibratory grid. So when people say that we're connected regardless of where we are, it's very true. We are connected. And that is just something, so I find it amazing. And I've been studying it now, got introduced to my energy teacher. I call her my energy teacher over 20 years ago, and studied with her for 8 years and learned the language around vibration and energy and chakra balancing and all the
Mm,
things that I had no clue about, but make perfect sense. So
yes.
that is such a gift that you have, even though not getting the headache is not a gift, but the gift that you have, that you're communicating with the other person's body. Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that, a gift. And some days it has not been a gift because I was not taught what was going on in my body.
Mhm.
And many people's illness would migrate on my body from
Mhm.
everywhere around me, not even within my little group, but outwards. I could feel things. And I always thought I was sick. My mom called me a sickly child because I was taking on everybody's stuff
Mhm.
and I didn't realize it. So, and you've studied. So I've learned to, and what I do with those vibrations is I put my hands like this. This is yours and this is mine. And learn to develop those barriers so that I don't experience that stress
Yeah.
in my body. And then looking for that cure and trying to cure it when I can't because it's not my stuff, it's theirs. So it has been confusing at times for me. Who am I feeling? What am I feeling?
Why am I feeling this? Well, and totally can relate to that, because one of the techniques that I learned from my energy teacher was to put a, a shield, invisible shield, energetically to protect me.
Mhm.
So, and then of course, the work that I do with body code, I am connecting with the client and with their um their their subconscious.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, we do our process and we go through the what we're doing based on what the client wants to work on. And I always have to release. So I connect with the client and their subconscious, but then I need to release from
Yes.
that
You
because
can't hold on to
I
it.
don't want to carry that around for the rest of the day.
No,
But it's important to understand that, which again, as you mentioned, we're not really
no, we're
taught
not.
to do. I was also very, very, I would say sensitive. I was very sensitive as a child, picked up on things very, very quickly from other people and didn't understand or know what to do with it. And so I wasn't overly ill all the time, but I did have, there was a lot that was going on in my household, all for the most part, all good, but any kind of any kind of extra emotion that might have been happening. I just picked up on that exactly. Now, Marie's got a great question here. What technique do you use to identify if it's yours or someone else's energy?
I ask myself, and then I ask my clients or my husband, and then I just share. I hear words, I see pictures, and some days I wish I was an artiste, an artist. So I could just draw and say, here's what I'm seeing. Tell me about this.
Mm.
And it's beautiful when working with clients. They'll share things, their soul energy body will share things with me, and I'll just send it back to them and say, does this resonate with you? So it's just a matter of really listening to the energy and getting that feedback. And, when they answer me back and they explain things like, oh, that makes sense. That's just not my stuff. It's yours. So it's not a technique. I would call it more of a knowing, more of an energy path of knowledge. That's what it is for me.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. An energy path of knowledge. I like that. Would you say that's also your intuition that's picking up on that?
You know, yeah, we hear that word so often. Intuition, probably. I know that I'm highly intuitive. I mean, both my
Mhm.
children are highly intuitive. And it's part of listening to your heart. However, is it intuition? Because I hear and see things. I'm not
Mm.
sure. Is that the energy field that surrounds us? Some of us have the innate intuitive ability to hear and listen to that
Yes.
because
Yeah.
it exists in that energy field quantum physics area. Um, and because I'm so connected to that, it might possibly be through intuition. I really don't know. I just know I hear it, see it, and feel it.
Is that
Um,
called the clair? There's all the different kinds of clairs. This clair
I
cognition, I think, is when you have that knowing,
yeah,
and you don't know
there's
why you know, but you do know.
you're right, and there's
Yeah.
so many different words given to it, and that's why I gave myself emotional energy healer because my area of genius is really understanding those emotions and understanding the energy behind those emotions and then helping people to heal themselves. So I'm not the healer.
Yeah,
They heal
they are.
themselves with my
Yeah.
guidance. And where it's coming from, I really haven't put a name to it. Many people have, but I have not put a
Hmm.
name to it because it is, in my opinion, it is so much more complex than just a name.
Yes, most definitely. Absolutely. And I love the way you explained that you have given yourself that title, if you wish, an energy, just say that again, energy,
Emotional
emotion,
energy healer.
emotional energy healer. Now, I just had this question pop into my head, so I'm going to ask it. So when you have clients coming to work with you, do you sometimes have to explain what that is, what an emotional energy healer is, or do they?
Not really. They want to know what I do with them. I don't
Mhm,
really have to explain it because they've come to me with knowing that it has to do with emotions, that their dis-ease, their
mhm.
diagnosis, their illness, whatever they're experiencing, they know it is beyond medical health.
Yeah,
So they've come to me knowing that it is the energy that they're holding on to, it's emotions that they're holding on to, and they know that it's making them sick.
right. Yeah. And it's those stress hormones that are getting ramped up that are, the amygdala and all of the cortisol and all of those things that
Yes, yes.
we had back in the day when we needed to, flee from the lion or something. But
Right.
now we still have those stress hormones,
We do.
and it's very important to understand what they are.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary to have those hormones in our body. We
Mhm.
truly absolutely need them. However, when you continually have the one hormone we're talking about right now, cortisol, go through your
Mhm.
body, then your body becomes ill. It becomes sick because you develop inflammation. You develop other diseases. You get things like, your skin, eczema.
Yep.
You develop like fibromyalgia, very much diagnosable. They've concluded now that's based in emotion. I was diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder in 1987, only a few years ago. And, it was diagnosed by geneticists saying it was genetic. Then I read a book by Dr. Christian Northrup, an OBGYN who's
Yeah,
retired
I've
from the
got her book
US.
too. Yeah, I like it.
Wonderful. Goddesses Never Age. Not to give a direct quote because I didn't remember it. Similar. She says, do not let yourself stuff your emotions in the connective tissue and energy system
Mhm.
for a lifetime. Or she said, quit. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So the stress of emotions and the cortisol that's
Yeah.
been built up in my body for generations has caused my DNA to mutate to then get a diagnosable condition. Now, let's look at that. Dr. Bruce Lipton says we can
Yes.
change the expression
Hmm.
of our genes. And I went, got it. I can do this. I can change the expression of my genes. I can heal my body and I can heal generations before me and after me. Again, how many of my generations have been stuffing their emotions in their
Yes.
body because we're not taught what to do with it? That it causes ongoing continual stress. You get blindness. What don't you want to see? You're so stressed, your environment is so chaotic, you don't want to see it. You develop a condition where you can't see. So, cortisol, of course, is in that adrenal gland, which is above the
Mhm.
kidneys. Another disorder that is caused by having too much cortisol, because inflammation can cause so much. Goodness
Yes.
sake. Inflammation of the arteries, inflammation everywhere. One condition, doctor, I love when I have doctors that quote these things that I do, says that typically children who have asthma have lived in a stressful household. I have been diagnosed with asthma at 16. My dad is a World War II vet.
Hmm.
A little stress there. And of course, we were told not to talk about it. So he lived in that flight and fright and freeze most of his life.
Yeah.
And my dad is still alive. He just turned 100 last month.
Wow. Congrats,
I
Dad.
know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the body keeps the score.
Yes, I love that book too.
Yes. So the very first chapter in that body talked about World War II vets. My dad's body has kept the score. Mentally, he's great and wonderful most of the time. However, because his body keeps the score, he is now visually seeing what he experienced in the war. He sees war vets out. He's in a memory cottage, which he's very mild dementia. Um, he sees war vets standing in the field across from him, a school field, getting ready to go on the ship to board. And he sees things because his body's kept the score. Because when these war vets came back, they were told, forget what you saw. We
Yeah,
know the body can't forget it. And don't talk about it. We
exactly.
don't talk
And
about it.
I'm so glad you raised that because many of us have my dad was in the Second World War as well, also went and fought at the what's called the Korean conflict, was sent
Oof.
there twice. He was in the Canadian Navy. But
Mhm.
my mother's father, my grandfather, fought in the First World War at Vimy Ridge. And so we've got that generation
Yes.
of energy, if you wish,
Mhm.
to where it was programmed that they weren't to talk about it. They didn't want to talk about it.
Yes.
They didn't, it was too emotional to talk about. But my grandmother told me a story of they were homesteading out in northern Alberta. And
Okay.
she said often they didn't get where they lived, they didn't get very many airplanes, but every now and again there'd be an airplane and he might be walking from the barn up to the house.
Mhm.
And she said he would just flatten onto the ground.
Oh my
That was definitely part of his body's memory,
Yep.
remembering what had happened.
And
This is
think about
many
how much
years later. Yeah,
cortisol was in his
still,
blood,
yeah,
still affecting him, that all he had to hear was a sound, and immediately it just kicked in like, I need to get flat, I need to
yeah.
protect myself, I need to freeze in this moment. You know, something to with cortisol, found some interesting. I've of course done my research like you have, and it weakens the immune system.
Mhm.
Again, back
Yes.
to me being a sickly child, how much cortisol had been in my body, how much cortisol was transferred into my body, how much cortisol did I hold because I was feeling other people's stuff. I didn't know
Yes.
what to do with it. Nobody taught me to understand energy. Nobody taught me how to synthesize the intuition, what I'm hearing, thinking, feeling. Nobody taught me that. I mean, I went to school and learned how to count, learned how to read, did all of that, learned geography. I didn't learn about myself. I didn't learn that it was okay to cry.
Yeah.
I didn't learn that it was okay to feel. I didn't learn that it was okay to express my feelings because I was never taught that feeling language. That's something I do for my clients is I give them that feeling language. When you connect to those emotions,
Beautiful. Yeah.
I mean,
We have to
it was,
have that. We have to
yeah.
have that. One of the trapped emotions that I sometimes find with my clients is called crying.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay, but I do an explanation as to why that emotion got trapped is because they weren't allowed to cry.
yes.
It was not, acceptable to cry. And this is for women, never mind men. Men, the last couple of generations, thank goodness it's changing
Yes.
slightly, but you know, uh, what you weren't manly if you cried. Like, really?
And you were also told that you were weak if you had emotions. And
Yes.
yet it's a strength because when you can truly understand, connect to, and utilize those emotions, from the head to the heart, you have a strength, I mean, I teach head, heart, gut,
Yes.
brain,
Yes.
and the
So
gut and
important.
the heart speak more to the brain than in reverse. And what's in your gut? All those hormones, you know,
Mhm.
85% of serotonin is produced in the gut and 15% is produced in the brain. So I've often thought, those pharma people, they miss something here. They give medication for the brain so you can have serotonin uptaker. Yet, however, 85% is in the gut. Just a second. The medication's going to the wrong place,
Yes,
you
that's
know?
right. And
And
one of my big questions over the last few years is how come all of a sudden we've had this, and this is my word, tsunami of Alzheimer's and dementia? And I don't remember there being a lot of that, as I was growing up, or
yeah,
and
they didn't talk about it.
yeah,
They didn't talk about it.
I was around aging people with
Mhm,
my
mhm,
grandparents had
mhm.
a big community, so we were around a lot of people. But when you think about when now we understand the the gut brain correlation. And now we know that whatever you're putting in your body is going to affect your brain. And we've all been eating, well, we haven't all been, but there's been, the processed food that has been part of our diet as North Americans.
Yeah.
It's so important to understand that, yes, that's exactly what's has caused all of this.
And that's only one component. What
Mhm.
else are we holding in our gut? Grief,
Mhm. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, anxiety, what are we holding in our head? Many emotions we hold everywhere. And so how do we digest those emotions? If we don't know that we've put them there, how do I digest them? And I want to go back to tears, because when we cry, one of the hormones that is expressed in our tears is cortisol. So
Yes.
guess what?
Yes.
Crying is healthy.
It's very
When we
healthy.
cry, it's healing our body because we're releasing that stress hormone. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. Something mm, cortisol, it puts weight on if it's in your body. No matter what you do, no matter what fad diets you have out there, no matter how much
Mm.
you don't eat, if your body is in excess of cortisol, it will put on weight and hold on to that weight, because the cortisol is a direct representation of the grief, of the
Mm.
emotions that we're holding on to, wherever we hold on to them.
Yes, so
Never mind to
true.
talk about as
Yeah.
women go through menopause, and then there's that estrogen that decreases, and even testosterone that decreases in our body. And typically, it's the middle part of a woman's body where the weight puts on. So is our, I always ask questions, is one hormone being replaced for another? As our body stresses from the reduction of estrogen, is it increasing in the production of cortisol because it doesn't have a hormone that can complement and
Right.
help our bodies to remain healthy physically and
Yeah.
emotionally?
Oh, I love these questions. They're so profound, and such good, information to understand this. And because, it's May and it's Women's Health Month. So all the women that are listening in today, and the men too, it's really such an amazing conversation. I'm so delighted that we were able to have this.
May I
So
just share just some tips to reduce that
yes,
cortisol?
please.
Because we
Yes,
were talking about
absolutely.
all the bad things. I just want to end with, please, if I could,
Yeah,
some of the good
absolutely.
things we could do for our body. As you spoke, you said eat whole foods. Absolutely. I was raised in a generation where my parents had a whole backyard of whole foods, beautiful foods. I still plant my own. And if you need, add supplements. You know what? As long as those supplements will digest properly, add them. Take some deep breaths. We've all been trained on how to breathe in, hold, and breathe out. So deep breaths is amazing. Not only does it reduce the cortisol, it reduces your brain from spinning out of
Yes,
control.
that is definitely techniques that Marie teaches.
Sure. And then, of course, reduce, caffeine. I'm not a coffee drinker. And get adequate sleep. We've heard all of these. I know we have. It's just a reminder. And then, another one is movement. Moving your
Mm.
body. Your brain can go around and around on this hamster wheel. And as you walk or move your body, it gives it a chance to reorganize those thoughts, let them go, release them like clouds. You see a thought and you don't like what it says. It's like, well, thank you, and let it go. Just let it go. And as you exercise, you release so much from your body and your mind. And then another one that really works for me is journaling. Even
Mhm.
when you're finding yourself in a high anxiety situation or anger, and you don't want to spew those words out, sit and put them on a piece of paper. The paper's not going to care. And if those words are kind of not comfortable, they're awful words, yucky words, negative words, take them and burn them or rip them up. Just get
I
rid of
love
them,
that.
allow them to go. So be physically involved in how you process those. And the very best part that I love is indulge in hobbies. What's a hobby? I mean, right now, my hobby is outside, planting flowers, planting the garden, going for a walk, listening to the water if I can get access to it here and where I live. So much prairie, and just indulge in hobbies. So what does
Mhm.
that mean? What does that look like? It's something disconnected to your workspace, your relationship space. It's all mainly for you, or you can find people that do the same hobby. So you're developing different relationships and creating fun.
Absolutely. And gratitude, I love the way you talked about journaling. And gratitude journaling is my go-to at the end of the day, because I like to be able to write in I do have a gratitude journal. I like to be able to write all the things that happened today that I was really grateful for. So it's very, thank you for all those tips. We know them, but we need to be reminded. So I'm glad that you listed them all out. It's very important. So we're going to say thank you again to Maureen Gates-Faubert for being our guest co-host today. We have a vision with the Healing Institute. We're a community of health practitioners, and we actually customize whatever treatment that you need. We customize it for you. So we're not a one size fits all. We're also a wellness community. So when you come to the Healing Institute, you actually get all of us. And so you might choose one, but then we know each other. We get to know each other's modalities and how they work. And so by knowing each other and being a community of wellness experts, we are then available for people coming to the website and interacting and connecting with us. Our motto is service with love. And we have a big ask. Please let people know about us. Let your friends, your family, your colleagues, let them know about the Healing Institute and what the people are doing on this, and share this podcast. And you got to meet another fabulous healer today, Maureen. Thank you so much for being my guest co-host.
Thank you so much for inviting me here, and I appreciate this opportunity to share. We have so much to learn from each other.
We definitely do. So we'll say goodbye to this podcast. We'll see you next Friday on Heal the World Show podcast, and have a wonderful weekend.